Hey ladies and gentlemen, this is Miss Humbert here, and today we're going to be talking about Unit 1, Notes 5. So we're going to talk about graphing inequalities. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at this. Before we really get into it, we need to kind of review graphing a little bit. So let's go ahead and let's graph some of these. So here, this is in slope-intercept form. So in order for us to graph things, it has to be in slope-intercept form. So we're crossing the y-axis at 5. Okay, so I'm going to find 5 on the y-axis. Now my slope is -3, which is the same as -3 over 1. So that means from that point I'm going down 1, 2, 3, and over 1, and plotting that point. So now I'm going to draw that graph. So that's a line. This is stuff we reviewed earlier in this unit. So now if I have -x plus 3y is equal to 6, in order to graph that, I'm going to have to solve for y. So first I'm going to take this -x and I'm going to add it to the other side. So 3y is equal to x plus 6. So now I want to solve this for y. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. And then, when I do that, x divided by 3, well, that's going to be 1/3 x. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So again, you need to divide each of those parts by 2. So you're crossing the y-axis at 2, and then you're going up 1 over 3 and graphing that point. So now we're going to go ahead and connect those dots. So we're crossing the y-axis at 2, and then we're going up 1 over 3. Now let's take a look at example 3. So when you have something that is just an x, that means that the line you're going to draw is going to be vertical. Okay, so let's find x is equal to 5 on the x-axis. So that's there. And then through that point, I'm going to have a vertical line. Now, if you were to have something that's just y equals with no x involved, that would be a horizontal line. Moving forward, let's take a look at graphing inequalities. So remember these symbols. You don't need to write down, just kind of remember them. If the y is facing, or if the alligator mouth is facing away from the y, it's going to be less than. If it's facing towards the y, it's going to be greater than. And remember that that line underneath means that it's equal to. It could also be that number. So let's take a look at what we're doing here. Okay, so inequalities with two variables. I do want you to actually write this down in your chart. Since they have two variables in them, we can't just solve them like normal inequalities. We actually have to graph them to get the solution. We can't just say x is greater than 2. Okay, so we're going to have to actually graph them. So let's take a look. So here are the steps. And we're going to kind of do number 4 along with the steps. So put the equation into slope-intercept form to graph. Well, for number 4, that's already done for us. Next, we need to decide what kind of line to make. So here's how I remember. If there's no line underneath the inequality symbol, then it's dotted. If there is a line underneath the inequality, then it's solid. So this one right here is solid. Now for part 3, if the alligator is facing towards the y, if the alligator is eating the y, you're going to shade up because we have a happy alligator. If the alligator is facing away from the y, it's not eating the y, then you're going to shade down. So those are the two decisions that we had to make. So you do want to make sure you make note of that on your steps for me, please. And last but not least, we need to graph the inequality. So here we're crossing the y-axis at 3. So then our slope is 2, which is the same as 2 over 1. So we're going up 2 over 1 and plotting that point. So I notice that I'm going to have a solid line. So here I'm going to have a solid line. Now I need to shade down. Well, what does that mean? What that means is you pick a spot on your line, and then you're just going to, what I like to do is I just go down straight from the line with my pencil. Wherever I land, that's the part I'm going to shade. So I'm shading in this region below the line right here. Let's take a look at another example. So for number 5, first of all, let's make our decisions. Well, it's already in slope-intercept form. I notice that there's no line underneath my inequality symbol, so that means it's going to be dotted. Then I see that it's facing towards the y. The alligator mouth is eating the y, so I need to shade up. So let's go ahead and graph that line. We're crossing at a -6. Then our slope is 1, which is the same as 1 over 1. Since there's no coefficient there, the coefficient is just 1. So now we're going up 1 over 1. And so we have a dotted line because there's no line underneath the inequality symbol. And then we need to shade up. So we pick a spot on the line and go up from it. And where my pen lands is where I'm going to shade for number 5, which is in this region right here. All right, moving forward, let's take a look at number 6. So for number 6, we're going to go ahead and graph this line. So let's make the decisions. First of all, it's going to be a solid line, which is under the category here, and it's opening towards the y, so I'm going to shade up. So I'm crossing the y-axis at 2. Then my slope is -4, which is the same as -4 over 1. So I'm going down 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1, and plotting that point. So now I can connect these 2 points, and I at least have my line. Now I need to shade. So I'm going to pick a spot on the line, and since I'm shading up, I'm going to go up from that. And where it lands is the region that I am going to shade in. I want you guys to try number 7 on your own. Notice it's going to be a dotted line because there's no line underneath. And since it's facing towards the y, you're going to shade up. All right, let's take a look at number 8. So we have 3x minus 2y is greater than -6. So now we want to solve this for x. So since that's a positive 3x, I want to subtract 3x from both sides. -2y is greater than -3x minus 6. So now we need to solve this for y, but we need to remember something really important about inequality. So to solve for y, I'm going to divide both sides by a -2. Now remember, if you divide by a negative number, even if there's 2 variables, you need to flip the sign. So we're going to flip that sign. So we're going to divide. -3 divided by -2 is 3/2, and then x. -6 divided by -2 is going to be a positive 3. So now we're ready to graph this. So we're crossing the y-axis at 3, and then our slope is 3/2. So we're going to go up 3 and then over 2 and plot that point. So I notice now that there's no line underneath my inequality symbol, so my line is going to be dotted. Then I want to look at my final slope-intercept form answer to decide where I'm going to shade. So in my final slope-intercept form, it's facing away from the y, which means I'm going to shade down. So I pick a spot on my line, and I'm going to shade down. Let's take a look at number 9. So for number 9, again, we need to solve that for y. So we have 5x plus y is less than or equal to 10. So now I need to solve that for y. So I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. And then I get y is less than or equal to -5x plus 10. So looking at that inequality symbol, I have a solid line underneath, so I need a solid line, and it's also facing away from the y, so I need to shade down. Well, I notice that I don't have 10 on my graph, so I'm going to change the scale, and it's going to go by 2's. So that means I'm crossing the y-axis at 5, which is going to represent my 10. Now I need to go down -5. So this scale is going by 2's, and then down here I'm going to go by 1's. So now for this one, I need to go down 5. Well, I'm going down 2, 4, and halfway is 5, and then over 1. Okay, so that just changed my scale, so I need to make sure I pay attention to that. And then I notice that it's facing away from the y, so I need to shade down. And then I'm going to graph that region underneath. Okay, next, I want you guys to take a look at this guy on your own. So remember that you need to convert it into slope-intercept form before you can graph it. Let's take a look at this one. So to solve for y for this one, we're going to have to divide both sides by a -2. Well, when we do that, that's going to flip my inequality symbol. 4 divided by -2 is -2x. -10 divided by -2 is +5. So I'm crossing the y-axis at 5. And then I'm going down to right 1 for my slope, because remember this is the same as -2 over 1. Well, I notice that there's no solid line underneath my inequality, so I need to use a dashed line. And then I need to pick a spot on my line and shade up. Okay, so that right there is my final answer for number 11. So this concludes your note video today. Please make sure you take your Schoology quiz once you're done. Thanks for listening.